the Golden Gullah Geechie Enterprises. Now, what Golden Gullah Geechie? What is a Geechie? Would anybody know what a Golden Gullah Geechie is? Anybody? The Gullah people are the people who are basically and predominantly the islanders who settled here, who came as part of slaves mostly, but they are from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. They resided on the Sea Islands predominantly and 30 miles inward. Because the area was malaria prone, a lot of these Gullah Geechie people were able to maintain a lot of their West African culture because there weren't very many white overseers in the islands, because whites couldn't really deal with the malaria. Blacks could. An interesting thing is blacks with malarial trait are resistant to, blacks with sickle cell trait, are resistant to malaria. And that's why they're able to live and prosper on these islands and live well. Now, a lot of these West Africans came with the skills purposely. They were purchased purposely for the skills with rice growing. Rice is a staple in Africa. Now, when people come to Amelia Island, they usually come for the shrimp fest. Very rarely do they come and look at the actual African culture that was here, because predominantly these islands were African American. They're all going through what we call gentrification. And that's because of three things. One, we found a cure for malaria when we were working on the Panama Canal. Two, we made bridges to the islands. And three, and most importantly, we came up with air conditioning. All of a sudden, these islands, which weren't very habitable, all of a sudden become habitable. So what's happening? Now we have people moving off the islands who can't afford it, because these islands are now the wealthy islands. And the original inhabitants that were here for years, and you'll see them in General Sherman's order number 15, the 40 acres and the mule order, they were supposed to get this land. They were supposed to get this land at the end of the Civil War because they were here. They were working. They were working. Okay, and then what happened? President Lincoln got killed, and President Johnson came in, and we had the Reconstruction period, which he really didn't support, and a lot of things that Lincoln had set up at the end of the war didn't come to manifestation. But a lot of Africans still reside, a lot of African Americans still reside in this area, and my tours actually address a lot of those issues that you've been driving past on this island and didn't pay attention to. For example, this church in and of itself, this church is an homage to Africa. If you look at the front of the church, there are two major steeples. That is an African concept. If you go back to Luxor, if you go back to the Temple of Karnak and the Temple of Luxor in Egypt, you're going to see those same things. At the very top, they're called obelisks. We call them spires, church spires. But a lot of what we do every day in this country comes from Africa. And that's what I talk about in these tours. I also highlight some of the artists that are on this island. We have Annette McCullough. She wrote a book about the Peck High School, which is the school that was a Rosenwald school. How many schools did anybody know who Julius Rosenwald was?
Yeah, Sears.
He was the CEO of Sears. Why was Sears important to African Americans? Why was Sears so important to African Americans? The catalog. You didn't have to go into the store and have people follow you around. You can, black folks couldn't go in certain stores down here. Well, they could order from the catalog, nobody cared. Well, Julius Rosenwald actually opened up, he worked with Booker T. Washington and opened up, guess how many schools for African Americans after the war?
Hundreds.
Hundreds?
I thought so.
5,332 schools dedicated to African Americans, and Peck High School is one of them. My mom graduated from St. George High School in St. George, South Carolina. That's another one. A lot of blacks graduated from these schools because most people believed and understood that education was what was necessary for people to move forward. Now, I am a West Point graduate, and so some of the stuff you see here is about West Point, a lot of it. And why is that? It's because West Point graduates shaped a lot of what you're going to see on this island. General Lee was the reason my family came to this island, because he pulled the troops out of Fort Clinch when he came down here in 1862 and realized the land was indefendable. So he pulled his Confederate forces off the island took them back to St. Mary's, and my family, who were slaves on Cumberland Island, came here in 1862. So that's how my family got here. So West Point is shaped that. Yeah, the 40 acres of the mule, General Tecumseh Sherman, his plan. That was a West Point graduate. Okay, Jefferson Davis, the head of the Confederacy, West Point graduate. All these people graduated from West Point. So that was my other tie to it, which is what I found interesting. And Fort Clinch, by the way, was built by a West Point engineer. It was designed and built by West Point engineers. Okay, so that is what I do. That's the tour. We do tours, like family reunions, business groups. I've done several of them already. And I also do history presentations on Veterans Day. This coming Veterans Day at the Peck Center, I will be doing a presentation on the amazing untold stories of the black graduates of West Point. How many people know that the current Secretary of Defense is a West Point graduate? West Point class of 1975. He was part of the black revolt and protest that happened at West Point that most people don't know about. If you look at his picture in his yearbook, it says, he has a quote from it says, "To be young, gifted, and black." Nina Simone, right there in his yearbook. So it's no wonder that he's pushing to get the 10 military bases that currently have Confederate names on them changed. So that's what I do. I also do tours. I do the history presentations, and also we'll be selling T-shirts that are specific to the Seminole War and this area. And then we'll also be doing, I have a book coming out next year, working on it. It's called Returning to Gullah, which will be my story about me as the mass migration, not from the north, not to the north, but coming back. There's so many African Americans that left the South in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and now their children are returning, and we're returning to Gullah and relearning our language and our culture. And so that's what I'll be talking about. That's what will be in the book, and please be looking forward to it. Thank you.